Now, let's take a look at the fuel system. Having an adequate fuel system is one of the most important parts of having an aftermarket engine management system. If we can't supply enough fuel to the engine under high load operating conditions, there's absolutely nothing the engine management system can do about it. Let's have a look at what we're going to require. Unlike a carburetor, which typically runs between about 5 and 8 pounds of fuel pressure, an EFI system runs anywhere from 40 to over 100 psi. Now, there are several different styles of fuel system setups that we could use. We could have an in-tank setup, we could use an external setup, or we might even have a multiple pump setup. So let's take a look at each one. An in-tank fuel pump is often supplied in a factory car. In this situation, the fuel pump is mounted inside of the fuel tank, which results in less fuel hose complexity, less fuel pump noise, and offers a lot of simplicity when you're setting up an ECU on a car that's already fitted with an in-tank fuel pump. One of the downsides of using an in-tank fuel pump is that they typically have a limited fuel flow. As you start to increase the engine power, you might find that the factory in-tank fuel pump simply can't keep up. The good news is that there's a number of high flow aftermarket fuel pumps which are designed as direct replacements for the factory pumps. If your fuel requirements start to exceed the values of even these aftermarket pumps, it's time you look at an external fuel pump setup. An external fuel pump is normally larger than an internal pump and is used because of its increased fuel flow capabilities. An external fuel pump can be more difficult to mount and plumb into the fuel line. However, it is easier to get a good power supply to an external fuel pump with thick gauge wire direct from the fuel pump relay. The fuel pump relay will be controlled by your ECU and will prime the fuel system when the ignition is turned on, as well as enable the fuel pump when the ECU detects engine RPM. If we have a vehicle that's going to make a large amount of horsepower, we may need to use multiple fuel pumps. Trying to fit lots of fuel pumps inside the fuel tank is simply impractical. In this case, an external pump setup is the only solution. We also need to take a look at the diameter of the fuel lines from the fuel tank to the pump, and from the pump to the injector fuel rails. The diameter of these fuel lines need to be sized appropriately for the target engine power. In order to protect our fuel pumps and injectors from damage, we need to use fuel filters. These are devices that are designed to capture any particulate matter in our fuel and prevent it from damaging or clogging up the fuel pumps or the injectors. In the best scenario, we would have a pre and a post filter, one before the fuel pump and one after. Typically, fuel filters are measured in microns, which defines the size of the material that's allowed to pass through the filter. A typical application would use a 100 micron filter before the fuel pump, which would keep any large debris from reaching the pump itself. After the fuel pump, a 10 to 50 micron filter should be fitted. This is extremely important because the fuel injectors have a very low tolerance for debris. A piece of debris only 30 or 40 thousandths of an inch in diameter has the ability to clog up a fuel injector. This could be absolutely catastrophic for your engine. By setting up the fuel system correctly now, you'll be avoiding so much trouble in the future.